Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Pottstown. I'm Mary Ryan here in my living room dining room combination. Carly Shell is playing the piano from home, and Emily Quarles Maurer is our Zoom queen this morning, also at home. So thank you, Emily. The UFP is a liberal religious community where our tradition draws from the wisdom of the world's religions, the guidance of reason. Oops, hold on. Forgot something. All right. Guidance of reason and the right experiences of mystery and wonder. We believe that every person matters and has both the right and the responsibility to follow their own conscience. We hope to touch your spirit, heart, and mind. We have zoomed in here from our different socially distanced pews, and we are all here because we have missed being together physically, but to share our varied spiritual paths in person. And we hope to be able to meet in person very soon now that folks are getting vaccinated. So whoever you are, wherever you are, and whomever you love, we are glad to have you here with us today. And we ask you to mute your microphones if basically right if you're not talking. So now is the time for announcements, where we're going to ask you to now unmute if you have an announcement that is pertinent to the UUFP. So
I have one. So there is a board meeting next Saturday via Zoom at 10 a.m. The good news to the board members is that my sitting tolerance is still about an hour and 15 minutes. So this should be a very efficient meeting. That's all I can say.
I have an announcement. We still have in the chat box the donate to UUFP. I don't know the total that we collected from the Texas Relief Fund. I'll have that next week. But for 3 weeks, we collected money to send down to the UUA to use towards that fund. So thank you, everybody who contributed.
Any others? Okay, thank you. Now it is time to put our phones in worship mode so that we can have a quiet meditative time. So please sit back, get comfortable as the chimes call us together. Now Carly will give us a musical piece. Carly, if you could please tell us what you will be playing. John?
Is Meditation by Massenet.
Thank you, Carly. That was lovely. And the perfect setup. Our opening words this morning are by me. Being at sea is an amazing experience. Sometimes it's just you and your ship and miles of open ocean. And in my case, these are small ships. The largest one I've been on carries 148 passengers. That ocean seems so quiet and peaceful, but you know that just below the surface, it is just teeming with activity. Just like here on land, life is starting and life is ending. Living things are being eaten or trying really hard not to be eaten. And we don't see any of it unless we're diving or snorkeling or quite possibly have a camera underwater. We just stare out to sea, hoping for some of that activity to come to the surface, usually hoping to see the telltale blow of a whale, because whales really are just the coolest. When that blow is spotted, we try to determine what kind it is by the height and the shape of the blow, and we all race to the front of the ship to see who pops up. Is it a humpback, as in this picture, a fin, or possibly a minke, or the queens and kings of the sea, the orca? We watch these huge animals move so gracefully and come to us to check us out, unless they're eating, in which case we are completely ignored. They are as curious about us as we are about them. And these interactions create memories that are transforming and unforgettable. The whales are usually joined by what I call their posse, the other critters and birds that follow them, hoping for leftovers in Monterey Bay. In Monterey Bay in Northern California, we saw humpbacks along with sea lions, harbor seals, and various pelicans and gulls, all in the same group. Everyone is just doing their thing peacefully without threat to anyone, including us. We know those whales, no matter the kind, will never intentionally hurt us. It's thrilling and it's peaceful all at the same time. This is part of our wonderful and amazing world, and it's what we are talking about protecting and nurturing when we talk about recognizing the reality of climate change. So let's think about those whales and their posse as we go through this morning. Our chalice lighting words today, let's see if I can do this. Can't light the chalice with the chime. Our chalice lighting words are from Christine Robinson. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows and gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign for our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. And Carly, if you'd please play Spirit of Life once through. Thank you. If you saw me texting and being a very bad leader, it's because my sister's texting me that she doesn't see me. So maybe she and Emily can figure that out. So next, I'm going to throw the ball to Linda to play to talk about our offering.
As Mary said, I'm Linda Pele, I'm the treasurer, and we have a donate to UUFP button in the chat box every Sunday. We also accept any money dropped off at the fellowship if you can slip it under the door or get inside. But the checks and bill pay and all that are still accepted too. We're doing collection that we do every Sunday, even when we're virtual, because we want to support the mission that we are working towards as a group so that we can be together in the future. So hopefully you'll think about what you can give and click that little button. Thank you.
Okay, just one brief second here. I have, never mind. So anyway, thank you very much. And now I'm going to do a meditation moment. This meditation is a drone video that Adam shot, who we met back in August when I did the part one of the climate change talk. And he was our expedition leader. So he asked the Argentinian or the Chilean government if he could fly the drone. So this is drone footage he shot of the Garibaldi Glacier. This isn't it in this picture, but it's near there in Chile and Patagonia. This glacier is regarded as one of the most beautiful in Chile, and it was towering above us. And one notable feature that you will see because of the video, you can't see it from where we were, is its medial moraine. And a medial moraine is where it's something that forms and it drags along all the rock and the debris when two glaciers meet. So this is actually where two have come together in two separate ice flows. So. All right, new share.
Mary, I think because you muted yourself, we can't hear any more of the music. And you're still muted, so we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, can you see it? Emily texted me that she can't see it.
We can see it has a screen with meditation on it. We can see that
Oh.
and now.
It's funny because it shows that I'm sharing. All right, hold on. Let me try it again. I'm sorry. Stop share. Uh-oh. Oh, I'm totally screwed up. All right. I image. All right, we're closing this guy down for a second. All right, there's the PowerPoint. Alt tab. What's this? Is it sharing now?
No, you're not.
That's so weird. All right, hold on. We're gonna get out because I actually,
Yes.
okay. I think I know what I screwed up. All right, we'll try this again. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope everybody noticed that very unusual view of the calving where we were actually above it and it just dropped away below us. So And calving is a very interesting experience because it drops before you hear it. So if you're looking one way and you hear the noise on the other side, all you see is the splash. So I don't have many good calving pictures. So the next thing is joys and sorrows. It's one of our few traditions like chalice lighting. So if anyone would like to share what's going on in their lives, important or maybe not so important, but something you'd care to share with us, please unmute yourself and go for it. My sorrow is my rehearsal didn't help. Because we actually tried this last night and it worked seamlessly. So anywho.
I have a joy in that this afternoon we're having, I think most of the children of the fellowship are going to come over to the gardens and we're going to plant marigold seeds in little cups and they're going to take them home and then raise them hopefully and then bring them back and put them in our garden for pest control and beauty. So that's my joy, is that we're going to have the kids out there and helping out with the garden. And we do have a bonfire next Saturday.
Oh, cool.
That's a joy.
Anybody else? Okay. So thank you very much for your joy, for that joy, and it reminds us that spring is coming. So our next is Carly with, oops, I guess not. It's afterwards. So this is all me. Here we go with part 2 of climate change. We're going to recap just a tad from what we covered in part 1 this past summer. Climate change is real, and all of us UUFPers accept that it is real and it is being caused by humans. We accept the science and that facts are simple things. 2 + 2 = 4. You can say it equals 5, but that belief absolutely does not matter one bit because 2 + 2 is 4 and that's it. So as with climate change, belief does not change a fact. There is no debate about this. People will say, oh, well, the science is not clear. The science is clear. 98% of scientists agree that climate change is real and is largely caused by humans. In other words, out of 13,950 peer-reviewed climate articles between 1991 and 2012, 13,926 determined that climate change was caused by humans. 24, 24, determined that it didn't. If you were a betting person, would you really want to bet against those odds? So, and we also discussed how climate change is causing wacky weather patterns all around the globe, including hotter weather and larger and more powerful hurricanes, and in some places, colder weather where they're not used to it. We covered the breaking off of the largest iceberg at sea, A68, which broke off of the Antarctic Peninsula on the Larsen Ice Shelf in July of 2027. When I was on my trip to Patagonia and South Georgia, I asked if we'd be able to see this, and I was told, not by Adam, nope, we wouldn't see it because it had not moved yet. Well, I asked that question in October of 2018. And it turned out in September, it had started its travels. And now it is heading towards South Georgia. And it is putting that island at risk. It's broken into at least, I think, 3 parts, but all those pieces are still mammoth. But the main piece still risks crashing into South Georgia and killing any animals where it happens to hit land. Right here on this slide shot by our friend NASA that can show us all these things, you can see here is the iceberg, one piece of it. Here's another piece that is broken off. and here's South Georgia. This, which one? It looks like it's bigger. The iceberg actually looks like it's bigger than the island. So depending on how the currents go, it could go around this way, it could go around that way, or it could slam straight into it. Give you an idea of where it's related. It broke off down in here on this side of the peninsula, and and looking at that NASA thing and looking at this map, I'm guessing it's right in here somewhere. So it doesn't have that far to go. So what are we going to do to stop all of this destruction so that we don't end up with this in our future, and that some very cute animals don't go, or cute animals do not go extinct? Question number one, should we address climate change? Well, my answer, of course, is absolutely. One of the primary changes, okay, I keep, hold on, I'll move that. One of the primary arguments you get from climate change deniers, who in my opinion have made the choice to deny the fact of climate change, have remained, as they say in court on various things, willfully ignorant, because the science is so clear and it's so overwhelming. And the things that they first told us are, when they started putting out these warnings, are happening. The only thing that they were wrong about so far is they're happening faster than they thought they would. So you kind of have to make a choice not to believe what is in your front of your face. And there was, up until Friday, only one major group in the entire world who, as a group with power, say they do not believe in climate change, and that's American Republicans. But now it seems it is also the Canadian Conservative Party, who just on Friday turned down a proposal from their own party leader by 50, I think it was 54 to 46%, not to recognize the climate crisis. The primary arguments given are that the climate has.
All right, I think I got 10:02 by my computer clock.
Somebody's.
Hi, Abby.
Hi, somebody's
I'll be kind of hosting.
Hi, somebody needs to mute.
Later this morning, if that's all right. Does somebody else want to do it?
Have we been bombed? Okay. So there is only, where are we? It was interesting. So the arguments are that climate has changed in the past, whereas we saw in the prior talk, yeah, the climate has changed in the past, but not this way. This is definitively different than times in the past, and that we can't afford to do anything because this just costs way too much money. So this slide shows the financial impact of doing something versus doing nothing. There have been several studies done that show it will cost, by the end of this century, cost 40 trillion dollars more by the end to do nothing than to start to fix the problem. And I say start because this is going to be an ongoing process, because we have long passed the point of no return. We will not get back to where we were before the industrial age started, but we do hope to keep it from getting any worse, and to, with a little luck, rolling back a few decades. We talk about leaving a huge financial debt to our children, grandchildren, their grandchildren, and their grandchildren to pay off. But leaving a livable planet is far more important, and it makes sense economically. Some of the cost savings, for example, will come from lower medical bills because we'll have better air to breathe. We'll have many fewer breathing problems. No less an authority than Lloyd's of London says that climate change is a fact and that businesses have to face up to it. It underscores the need for businesses as well as governments to account for climate change in their strategies. We've seen companies that have been taking this to heart, or whether they have a heart, but to the bottom line, by such things as increasing the production of electric cars and more fuel efficient airplanes. And then in a smaller case at O'Hare Airport in Chicago. Did you know they have gardens on the terminal roofs where they grow the vegetables and the herbs that are served in the restaurants at some of the restaurants in the airport. And in some of the areas which are harder to mow because they're so small, they have llamas that do the work. They put them out there and they eat the grass. Now, compared to the carbon footprint of an airport, it's a small thing, but it helps. And those gardens help to lower energy bills inside. So we started getting going with this with the Paris Climate Agreement back in 2015. And then, of course, we had what could only be called a really bad change in policy, and we dropped out in 2017. However, the rest of the world kept going, and we rejoined later this year. But getting that lost time is going to be difficult, but it may not be as hard as we think, because a lot of, like the state of California, for example, and many individual companies in other states said, well, as a country, we're dropping out, but we don't care. We're going to stick with this agreement. Now, some of the pledges in this agreement, I have to keep. This slide shows where we were and how things were based on the proposals. And this, you'll see, I have to see if I can explain this. Right now, if we just keep going our happy little way we are now, we are going to increase the temperature
Mary,
by.
we can't see the slide.
You can't.
I can,
Impossible.
it's the current climate pledge would reduce global warming, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, it must be me. Never mind.
My sister's a problem. All right.
Never mind.
So, this one shows where if we continue on our major little path, it's business as usual, we will increase temperatures by 4.5 degrees Celsius by 2100. And we will increase, or 8.1 degrees Fahrenheit. The proposals out of the climate accords have us increasing by only dropping that 1 degree to 3.5 degrees Celsius, when we really need to drop it 2.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. So we are, even the proposals as they exist now are 1.5 degrees short of their goal. So we've got a way to go. And even this 2 degrees Celsius goal is a problem, because I keep having to move this thing. The global anomalies, somebody took a thing where they did a baseline from 1881 to 1910 to show where the climate was across the month. This slide is from April of 2016, and it is showing where the, what the temperatures are across the months, how in that prior year, the temperatures had gone up compared to that baseline up to 1910. And scientists say, if you go over that 1.5 degrees, you're going to start, and it keeps there and it stays there globally, we're going to have catastrophic changes. Now, as we learned in our last talk, there's a 40-year delay between our CO2 emissions and the temperature rise. So whatever we're doing right now, a lot of us on this call are not going to see the results in our lifetime. And to me, that 40-year delay and the fact that this total process is going to take a couple hundred years to sort itself out is part of the problem. Because we're really not much for delayed gratification. And how do you tell people to sacrifice or what they believe they're going to sacrifice when they won't see what results? It's going to be their children, their grandchildren, and maybe their grandchildren's grandchildren are the ones that will actually get down that road. But think about it. We have our younger folks that are coming up that really recognize this and are willing to make the changes. So, and they will see some results 40 years or maybe 80 years into the future, 40, as we keep going. So, and they will see it as their new normal. So they won't see it as sacrifice. So how are we going to address this? It's a global problem. Requires a global solution. And some countries are worse than others. And I'm sure you can guess who's the big 800-pound gorilla here. It's us. This thick gray line down here represents the whole world. This is where, if you take everybody's CO2 emissions together, this is where they come out. The US is up here. And you'll notice how, but we have been improving pretty steadily since about, this looks like it's probably about 2006 or 2007, where things have started dropping. And the rest of the world and the EU is also dropping. The rest, a lot of folks, not much, not as much as we are, but they're dropping. This group of nations has gone up and they have sort of leveled off. But the one that is going up is China. At the same time we started dropping, they started a pretty steep climb as they got into industrialization. But yet their emissions still are less than half of what ours are. So since we are the big contributor, it also gives us more opportunity to cut. And this slide tells us there are places we can cut where we don't realize it, or we don't really think about it. And as much as we don't like to think about it, what we eat has an impact on the environment, on how much CO2 goes out into the world. So this shows various things, and the primary offender is lamb. The green line, which has the bulk of it, is production costs. This is until the animal, or what is left of the animal, leaves the farm or the ranch. This is post-production, such as transport, retail, whatever. And one of the things that surprised us was, why is lamb at the top? So Becky did a little research last night, and it's because they have less meat per pound. So you actually end up with less food. And this is just another way of looking at it, where you have the carbon footprint versus the car on the trip. So if you would like, somebody needs to mute. I think it is. Becky? Mute. Yeah, we can hear you. So if you would like any of these slides, I can send them to you, or I can tell you where I got them, because Adam actually has them out on his website for the entire thing to share. Now, this is the participation part. I can't see everybody, so I can't have, the show of hands that I was planning on having. But so everybody can unmute here, and we can maybe have a little discussion as we go through these. Which do you think of these two things, biodiesel or oil, creates the most produces the lesser amount of CO2? And is it a big difference? So which one is better
diesel-
for the environment?
Diesel is refined only 1/3 as much, I believe. So I'd say actually the diesel.
Okay, you're right, the diesel, but it is a minuscule amount. It's only 8% less than the crude out of and the reason for this is because of the land that has to be cleared in order to grow the corn, in order to do this. Next question. Which one of these, hydro or nuclear, produces less CO2?
Nuclear.
Nuclear.
Bingo, you all are very smart. Nuclear is actually the waste aside, a very clean form of energy. And there's actually a new version of nuclear that they're using in France that generates 90% less waste than we have down here in the smokestacks at Limerick. But it requires weapons grade uranium. And the United States government says, no, you cannot do that. Next one is among these four, who do you think? And Becky, can you explain what that H2, or maybe John, because we were trying to figure it out. Francis or Becker? Okay. But that was a hydrogen cause. So if we're not sure what it is, but of these we have
It's hydrogen energy.
Huh?
Hydrogen. H2 is hydrogen gas.
All right, so it's hydrogen gas. This social bioethanol advertising here, natural gas, or the gas, our regular old standard gas pump. Which one produces the least?
H2.
Do you hear you?
H2.
Anybody else have any guesses?
H2.
Nope. It's natural gas. And the second is actually crude, or is our gasoline. And the green energy up there, which I'm not sure, I don't recognize this, so it's probably some sort of Aussie thing. It shows us that we got to watch our advertising, because somebody can just place green on it, and somebody can go and stick green on a Shell station. So we don't know what we are.
That's what.
Learn how to make intelligent.
Well, hydrogen gas has no carbon in it.
Yeah,
Well,
hydrogen gas does not produce carbon dioxide.
Okay,
at all.
well, we'll talk to Adam about this one and see what he's looking at.
I
Well,
think
maybe
that-
he screwed up.
I think they're figuring that hydrogen gas is made by burning coal to generate the electricity, but
That's probably
If
it. In Australia, they use a lot of coal. All right. Which produces less CO2 here? A road trip or clearing 1 square meter of?
Oh, the road trip for sure.
We're smart group.
uh,
Absolutely, that 1 square meter, because we're taking away the trees that are processing the CO2.
I didn't know that.
All right, remember I learned about concrete in the last group.
Concrete. This is
So
up your
which
alley.
one of these produces less CO2? That whole house or the putting down that concrete slab?
House.
What if the house has a concrete slab?
We're doing the amount of energy our little house is using, I think. But I know, I wondered about that one too, because it looks like the same house. But after it's built, it's the house.
Okay.
So we'll get off the quiz and y'all can move. But as you can see,
You
it
can
gets
make
confusing.
concrete. You can make concrete with lime.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. But anyway, we'll keep with our talk here. So it does get confusing seeing what's a smart decision. And then this is Adam and his "don't get me started." And I agree with him on water. As he says, you take a nice short shower thinking you're saving water, and then you go and chow down on a hamburger, which in its the short shower, roughly 65 liters, whereas the hamburger in its life has from birth to your plate has used roughly 2,400 liters of water. And my personal one that drives me nuts is the water used for fracking, because we're using the water in the fracking and we really do not have any spare fresh water to use for this stuff. So how should we address climate change? Well, we can just read the slide, and we have all these technologies. We just need to use them better, more efficiently, and just more of it. So as a group, one way we can do this and to cut climate change is to cut coal. Just take it out altogether, which should be theoretically fairly easy. But as we see, there are always forces pushing back. They say jobs, but there are fewer than 100,000 coal jobs in this country. And one of the problem, what's our solution? What's our problem? One of the problems is retraining. Do people want to redo things and learn how to do things differently or a different line of work? And I just have a hard time thinking that people would just really want to keep staying in coal, where you risk dying of black lung disease or getting crushed in a mine accident. The second thing is we could cut out gasoline by 1/3. So that's 2/3 down already, but it's much harder. But think about it. We are moving that way right now. The auto companies can see the handwriting on the wall. Was it Ford? I can't remember. I think it was Ford that said by 2035, everything that they produce is going to be electric. And we are building solar charging stations for electric cars. Becky and Bill rented a Tesla when we were out in California a couple years ago, and at one point charged it at a solar charging station. And these are the various carbon uses by countries around the world. And you can see who is being very efficient, who isn't. We're kind of, believe it or not, more or less in the middle here, which we have a broad mix because we have solar and wind and all around the country. And a few politicians, who shall remain nameless, may have blamed wind farms for the recent blackout in Texas. But since 10% of their wind power comes from wind, that actually wasn't true. And wind power works fine in far colder environments, such as the Great Plains here in the US, Canada, and as we saw on our trip in the North Sea off the coast of Ireland. And you should see those things spin. Man, did they move. The failure was human because they didn't pay attention and upgrade the infrastructure needed to handle the cold, which is now becoming more frequent due to climate change. And also the wind power apparently froze because they used a cheaper grade of oil, lower grade of oil than they needed. So what's the problem? There's the problem. It's the money. And it's political will, because the people with the interest in fossil fuels have the money and they donate to the politicians who want to keep them in their power. But how is this different than ever? Stagecoach operators weren't happy when the railroads could move people faster and cheaper. And then cars came in and airplanes. Change is hard. The telegraph kind of wiped out the Pony Express, if I got my history right. And there's always somebody who stands to lose and somebody who stands to win. But those who adapt are really the big winners. And if we were serious about changing things, we would look into more rail. According to CSX, which I don't know what it stands for, but it's one of the freight companies, they said that they have out that they can, on average, move 1 ton of freight. Of course, they're moving more than 1 ton. They're moving thousands and thousands of tons of freight, but they can move that freight 470 miles on 1 gallon of fuel, that 1 ton. And then I'm like, I don't know. And I found an article where they, it's a technological website, where they did a whole bunch of math and determined that this seems nuts number is plausible. And a lot of it is because once a train gets started, it moves pretty well on it. You know, it's just going, it's getting that engine started and moving. And thousands of New York and Chicago commuters get downtown using rail, either the elevated, the subway, or locomotive pushed or pulled trains going into downtown. And those big trains, they do not care how snowy it is. They can get through a couple of feet of snow without any problem. And the tracks to Philly are there. So why aren't we using those tracks to get to the city or to King of Prussia? Think of the amount of pollution being caused by those traffic jams on 422. And the other thing where money comes in is fossil fuel subsidies. And this number just staggers me. And I don't know if this is the US alone, but it probably is. But $10 million per minute is going to some of the most profitable companies in the world to drill. Does ExxonMobil really need a subsidy to drill? I don't think so. And what if they do? Well, maybe stopping those subsidies really, really works, since we want them to stop drilling anyway. So that's just my opinion. And that is with apologies to Becky's and my late uncle, who was a wildcat driller in Texas, New Mexico, and for a while, Australia. So we're going to start wrapping up now. The US military, which is, oh, sorry, never mind. This is John Kerry's comment on climate change as he helped negotiate the accords. The climate change is a threat to the security of the US and indeed to the security and stability of countries everywhere. The US military, which nobody is ever going to accuse of being one of the most progressive organizations, says that climate change, because of the instability that it causes, is their most dangerous threat. So how could we redirect some of that money that the military is spending? You know, we've been through this many times about how much military spending we do in this country. And I took the $640 billion that the US spends and started subtracting all the numbers of the next 9 to see how many of these 9 would be included in this amount. Turned out after I deducted all of these, I still had $1.4 billion left over. So we think of what we could do if we could direct worldwide less spending to the military and more to the people. Of course, another problem is as soon as you talk about cutting military money, people start saying, oh, you're un-American and all that stuff, and it's another problem. So this is a slide that he did for a school somewhere. And it shows energy savings, but these are energy savings that we can do ourselves. If you're not using it, shut it off. You really need that thing to be on all night so you can just hit the enter, just tap the keyboard and get the computer up and running in the morning. And making paper, aluminum, glass, and plastic from recycled materials uses a lot less energy and water than making them from virgin materials. And you don't use up those virgin resources. There's lots and lots and lots of water used in transforming the crude to the plastic that we see in our bottles. And now I don't know if anybody's noticed the beverage company ads that are out there telling you now to put the cap on the bottle, because that will key the recycler that is special and they can pull it, and there's a special now recycling thing where they can include it all and it'll come back and they will just keep recycling the plastic. We can start driving more energy efficient cars, which I think we're doing a really good job here at the UUFP because I think when we were doing our weeding, I counted 4, maybe 5 Priuses in the parking lot. And as Jimmy Carter said way back during the late 70s, during the energy crisis, you really need to have that thermostat turned up so high. Put on a sweater. And remember, he put solar panels on the White House. Think of how much better we would be if we continued on that path. So as he was preaching to us, Adam said, see what I'm doing. And he has solar panels on his house in Cairn, Queensland, where he told me he's 20 minutes from the Great Barrier Reef, 20 minutes from a desert, and 20 minutes from a rainforest. This is a quote from Buckminster Fuller, which sounds so happy, but I'm not sure we can actually pull this one off. But now it is highly feasible to take care of everybody on earth at a higher standard of living than any have ever known. It no longer has to be you or me. Selfishness is unnecessary. War is obsolete. It is a matter of converting high technology from weaponry to livingry. So in closing, we know it's changing, we're causing, and now we just have to figure out the hard part. What are we individually and as a group, as a country, going to do about it? So now, Carly, will you please treat us to another song? Thank you, Carly. So now, everybody say with me. Please join me if you can, in our closing words by Elizabeth Seelig Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth or the warmth of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again. And my closing words. I keep thinking that maybe those of us who are talking about climate change are not going about it the right way. We talk about saving the planet and the polar bears, when we should be talking about saving the planet or about saving ourselves and the polar bears. The planet will be just fine. It'll be here spinning in space. It'll be here spinning in space until the meteor or the asteroid hit or the sun burns out. It's been through worse than this in its 4.5 billion years. The meteor that took out the dinosaurs, for example. And it does a pretty good job of shaking things up all by itself. Can you imagine the earthquake or whatever it was that broke up Pangea 175-ish million years ago? And then there are the volcanic eruptions that create islands such as Hawaii and the Galapagos, or blot out the sun for days. Our beautiful planet will be fine. The problem will be what life will survive. In addition to the cute little animals that we don't want to go extinct, we want to make sure that cute little humans don't go extinct either. So thank you, blessed be. And now we can stop recording and move in to coffee hour.